The world never belonged to the strongest, but to those who learned to hide their cracks. Look around you. Brilliant men, noble men, hard-working men, reduced to shadows that obey, not because they lack talent, but because they mortgaged their power in exchange for something worse than defeat: approval. Do you recognize yourself there? That emptiness in your chest, that tremor you silence, is the sign that you gave up your crown before claiming it. And no, you are not the only one. Centuries ago, someone had already deciphered this perverse game. A man hated and feared for saying what everyone suspected but no one dared to pronounce. His name was Machiavelli, and his words are dynamite for anyone who still believes that kindness alone builds empires. Block 1. The price of seeking approval. We live in an age where appearance matters more than being. You see it everywhere. At work, the one who rises is not always the most competent, but the one who perfects the art of nodding, the one who knows when to laugh at the boss's joke, even when it's not funny, the one who covers mistakes instead of confronting them. In relationships, it's the same. How many people have you seen lose respect out of fear of causing discomfort? They silence what they feel, swallow what hurts, and in the end, they become shadows inside their own lives. And one day, they ask themselves, confused, why no one takes them seriously anymore. Look at social media. The ones who shine the most are not always the most authentic, but those who wear the best mask. Edited lives, calculated smiles, empty phrases that harvest easy applause. And the paradox is brutal. Even knowing that approval doesn't mean respect, millions still chase it like starving dogs behind a pat on the head. The result? An army of men and women who believe recognition comes from pleasing, when in reality it comes from imposing limits. That's the fatal error. Approval was never power. It's an invisible poison that turns you into a slave, because he who lives asking permission to exist ends up invisible. And the worst part is, when you trade your respect for acceptance, the world doesn't thank you for the sacrifice. It buries you in oblivion. He who sacrifices his respect to be accepted ends up forgotten.
Do not be mistaken. In my time, it was no different. I saw entire courts filled with flatterers, with counselors who nodded fervently, even though they knew the prince was wrong. What was their fate? To be used and then discarded. I remember the halls of Florence. Those who sought the affection of power became its toys. Those who dared to cast their shadow, even if they awakened fear, were the only ones who survived. Cesare Borgia understood this better than anyone. He did not seek the love of his men, he sought respect. And when he obtained it, he ruled more firmly than any of his enemies. I wrote it in The Prince. The ruler who depends on the love of his people becomes a slave to their whims. He who inspires respect, even among critics, guarantees his permanence. I did not speak of gratuitous cruelty, but of survival. The world is a banquet of wolves, and he who arrives begging for affection does not sit at the table. He becomes food. Remember this: history does not remember the docile, only those who learned not to ask permission. He who seeks to be loved ends up devoured. He who inspires respect is rarely betrayed.
Block 2. The trap of the perfect moment. How many times have you thought, it's not the right time yet? That you need to save a little more, study another course, wait until conditions are favorable. And what happens? Months pass, a year passes, half a life passes. Meanwhile, you watch others move ahead. People less prepared than you, less intelligent, less capable. And there they are, occupying places that could have been yours. The perfect moment is a disguise. It's fear painted in the colors of prudence. And the problem is that the longer you wait, the weaker you become, because you train your mind to cling to excuses. In the end, it wasn't that you couldn't, it's that you never dared to take the step while trembling. He who waits for the perfect occasion has already chosen to lose.
In my time, I saw it every day. Princes who postponed decisions, waiting for the right advice, a sign from heaven, the perfect alliance. While they waited, others acted. And when they awoke from their prudence, there was no throne left to defend. Florence, Milan, Rome. I saw kingdoms fall not by the strength of the enemy, but by the indecision of their leaders. Power is not offered to the one who waits. It belongs to the one who moves first. That's why I wrote that fortune favors the bold. Because fortune is like a wild woman. She yields to the one who dares to master her, not to the one who contemplates her from afar with respect. The one who seeks guarantees dies chained to his waiting. The one who leaps, even trembling, may lose, but he may also conquer the impossible. He who advances with decision rules. He who waits with doubts obeys.
Block 3. Invisible chains. You were not born with fear. As a child, you weren't afraid to speak, to run, to ask for what you wanted. That fear was learned. You absorbed it in a classmate's mockery, in a father's look of disappointment, in someone's laughter when you showed enthusiasm. From then on, you began to build invisible cages. Better stay quiet, better not stand out, better fit in. And those phrases became walls. The worst part is that now you don't even need anyone to limit you. You do it yourself, obeying rules you never chose. You look at your dreams and think they're impossible. But that's not true. They're only impossible for the domesticated version of you. The greatest jailer is not your enemy. It is you obeying fears you no longer even question.
In my time, the strongest chains were not made of iron. It wasn't necessary to imprison a man if he himself believed in his impotence. I saw entire armies defeated before fighting because they believed the rumors that the enemy was invincible. I saw brilliant counselors remain silent because once they were ridiculed in public. And I understood that the most powerful weapon is not the sword or the gunpowder, but the fear planted in the mind. That's why I warned. Wise princes never show hesitation. The people must believe their leader knows no trembling, even if he feels it in his entrails, because the first battle is always fought within, and whoever does not win it inside has already lost it outside. The man chained by his doubts needs no enemies. He destroys himself.
Block 4. The strategy of those who don't tremble. They've sold us a dangerous lie, that one day, suddenly, fear disappears, that the perfect moment will arrive, when you wake up without doubts, without tremors, ready to act. That moment does not exist. Fear never leaves. It only changes form. Today it's insecurity. Tomorrow it's the pressure not to fail. Later it's the voice of those who want to see you fall. The mistake is waiting for fear to vanish. True power lies in moving with it inside you, in walking while your inner voice shakes. The ones you admire are not those who feel no fear, but those who learn to use it as fuel. While you wait, others, less prepared, less brilliant, advance. Not because they are worth more, but because they stopped asking for permission. He who acts with fear defeats the one who waits doing nothing.
In my time, too, there were men paralyzed by their search for certainties. Princes who doubted too long before moving their armies, waiting for signs, prophecies, impossible guarantees. And in that waiting, their less prudent enemies devoured them. Power does not reward the one who hides in safety, but the one who launches with decision, even into the shadows. A leader who does not tremble is not the one who feels no fear, but the one who tames it and rides it like a wild horse. Writing strategies, endless planning, gathering counsel. All of that is useless if action never comes. Destiny does not belong to the cautious who wait, but to the bold who risk. Fear is always at the table, but it only rules if you give it the chair.
Block 5. The face of chaos. Spartacus and Machiavelli. Chaos has always had a bad reputation. We are taught that the unpredictable is dangerous, that the uncontrollable is what we must avoid. But tell me, what is more fearsome? A man who plays by the rules or one who breaks them without apology? Spartacus was the embodiment of that truth. A slave who rose against empires, who turned obedience into fire, and who made Rome tremble. Not for his strength, but because he could not be predicted. Such figures inspire fear not because of their violence, but because they cannot be controlled. And the most unsettling thing is that they do not seek to be liked or understood. They exist without asking permission, and that is the purest of most savage power. Think of your own life. How many times have you not dared to do something because you thought about what they would say? The chaotic ones do not carry that chain. And that is why, when they enter the room, everything turns toward them. Not because the world loves them, but because the world fears them. The man who asks no permission is the only one truly free.
In my time, I knew figures who embodied that same spirit. They did not wield swords as sharp as Spartacus, but they were just as unpredictable. Generals who appeared where the enemy least expected, rulers who shifted alliances overnight, men who broke pacts without hesitation. And do you know what happened? They were hated, yes, but also impossible to defeat. I wrote it in my pages. He who is predictable, he who clings to the image of being good and docile, always ends up being manipulated. Controlled chaos, on the other hand, is a weapon. It makes rivals tremble because they never know your next move. The prince who knows how to play with that unpredictability not only rules, he terrifies. And fear, believe me, is a far more faithful ally than love. Chaos frightens the weak, but gives power to the one who knows how to govern it.
Block 6. Your boundaries are your empire. There is a truth no one teaches you. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you lose territory. I don't mean physical land, but something far more valuable: your respect. How many times have you allowed someone to cross the line because you thought it was easier to stay silent? That silence wasn't prudence. It was surrender. Your boundaries are your first frontier, your true empire. If you don't defend them, your life becomes land for pillage. People notice. The one who cannot say no, the one who is always available, ends up being treated like a cheap resource. And the worst part is that the erosion begins inside. With every concession that betrays what you really want, your self-image crumbles a little more. The day you start guarding your time, your energy, your peace, that day you stop being a servant of others and begin to be sovereign of yourself. Respect begins where you learn to close the door.
In my time, the map of kingdoms was filled with disputed borders. Cities that did not defend their walls were taken effortlessly. It did not matter how much gold they had or how prosperous their people were. Without limits, they were prey. The same is true of men. The prince who does not clearly establish what he tolerates and what he does not ends up ruled by those who should obey him. I warned that allies turn into enemies when they perceive weakness. The vassal who always concedes soon ceases to be a vassal and becomes a slave. Power begins in the capacity to protect your own ground, even if it means discomfort or criticism. Your boundaries are not walls that isolate you. They are the fortresses that guarantee your permanence. Because he who does not defend what is his ends up living under another's rules. He who does not raise borders in his life is condemned to serve in another man's empire.
Block 7. The power of leaving on time. We are taught that surrendering is weakness, that staying until the end is honorable. But the truth is that most personal defeats don't come from losing battles. They come from not knowing when to leave. Think, how many times have you stayed in a dead relationship out of fear of being alone? How many times have you remained in a job that drained your energy because you thought no other opportunity would come? That attachment is not loyalty, it's fear disguised. True power is not always in enduring, it is in knowing when to let go. The one who does not leave in time withers, and the world interprets his permanence as weakness. Not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes leaving is the greatest victory because you recover what is most valuable: your energy, your time, your fire. The man who does not know how to leave becomes a prisoner of his own permanence.
I saw too many princes ruined for not knowing how to abandon a battlefield or a dead alliance. In Florence, in Rome, across Italy, power was full of traps. Rulers who clung to useless pacts, afraid of seeming weak, were devoured by the very allies they sought to protect. I warned, leaving on time is not surrender, it is strategy. The prince who does not know how to cut ties when it suits him surrounds himself with enemies disguised as friends. He who does not know when to depart becomes bound to the whims of others until he is cast out without honor. But the one who knows how to disappear at the exact moment leaves behind an indelible shadow. He is not seen as defeated, but as one who chose his own fate. In politics, as in life, leaving on time is not flight. It is the highest act of sovereignty. The prince who chooses his withdrawal writes his legend. The one who waits to be cast out writes his epitaph.
Block 8. The legacy of those who do not ask permission. By now, there is something you should already understand. The world has never rewarded the obedient. Think of it. Those who follow the rules to the letter rarely leave a mark. Those who wait for the perfect moment die waiting. Those who seek to be liked end up invisible. In contrast, those who dare, even afraid, are the ones who transform their destiny. Look at yourself for a moment. Everything you have lost by staying silent. All the times you knew what to do, but froze so as not to disturb. It is not time that robs you of life. It is the decisions you never make. The world does not need more submissive men. It needs figures who disturb, who claim, who leave scars. The day you stop asking permission, that day your empire begins.
When I wrote The Prince, I did not do it to entertain. I did it to shake. I knew my words would be branded cruel, but I also knew the soft would never survive. I saw entire kingdoms fall because their leaders sought to please. I saw rulers murdered because they mistook kindness for weakness. And I saw others, a few, rise above the fear of others and rule beyond their time. That is the secret. It is not enough to live. You must impose yourself. It is not enough to be good. You must be necessary. Love is forgotten. Sympathy fades. But respect, once conquered, becomes armor. And that armor is not inherited. It is taken. He who dares to rule his shadow ends up ruling the world.
Most men live their entire lives as shadows. They accept rules others wrote. They keep silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they fear the echo of their own voice. And so the years pass, obedient, predictable, docile, convinced that prudence is virtue, when in reality it is fear disguised. But now you know, power is not granted, it is seized. Respect is not asked for, it is imposed. Freedom does not arrive when the world changes, but when you decide to stop obeying the invisible. Look at your life and examine it coldly. Where are you giving away your strength? In which relationships? In which jobs? In which silences? Every time you sacrifice your voice for the approval of others, you build the cage in which you lock yourself. Remember this: the men who mark history were not the strongest. They were the ones who stopped asking permission. And now the question is only one. Do you want your name whispered in low voices out of respect?
Or not remembered at all?